Now let's talk about budget control. Now we understand budget process. We understand types of types of budget. We've gone through all the types of budget now. So there shouldn't be any budget type you hear anywhere that you shouldn't be very comfortable to talk about. Right. Now let's think about something else about budget, and that is talking about budget control. Yeah, part of the objectives or advantages of having a budget is that you can use it as a control tool. Yeah, which means you are using budget data. So this is like talking about use of budget data as benchmark to assess performance. So you're actually looking at managers and you are saying, I'm going to use your budget to determine how efficient and effective you have been as a staff. Yeah. Once you start doing that, what you are doing is you're using budget as a control tool. It's different from as a planning tool, where you are just using it to determine the revenue, the unit you should produce, the resources you will need, how you should allocate those resources. That is planning. Now, you want to use it as a control tool. How do you go about it? So let's look at the steps to follow. Yeah, we know the first thing first of all, number one, is to set the budget. Once we have set the budget, we need to use the budget, which means we need to now implement the budget. And that is what you do on a daily basis. So that's implementation of the budget. That is, you're just running your business. Yeah, based on the budget. Once that is done, yeah, end of the year will come. And it's time to do appraisal. So the question is, how did you perform? So give me your actual results. So that is where we'll collect the data. So we'll collect the actual now. So the next step is to collect those actual results. If we have said that our operating expenses should not be more than 10 million, that is the budget. But the question now is, what is the actual as well? So we need to collect the actual. Once we know the actual, then we can compare our actual and the budget. So we'll compare here actual versus budget. You can see this budget control process because we want to measure performance. So when you compare actual and budget, what are you trying to achieve? What are you looking for? You just want to know the difference. That's why you are doing that comparison. So you need to review the difference because you will get that difference when you compare, but you now need to review the difference between the actual and the budget because more than likely it will always be different. Yeah, but the question is, this difference, is it favorable or not? That is the big question. So is it favorable? Which means we're happy with the difference, or it's unfavorable, which means we are not happy. We are sad. If it is favorable, yeah, it's all good. No issues. Well done. Good appraisals. Next year, even do better. You encourage. Or maybe if you're doing it maybe quarterly, if it's a quarterly feedback or maybe half-year feedback, you say, okay, yeah, you've done well first half of the year. Second half of the year, please make sure you keep it together just as you've done, or even do better. Yeah. But if it's unfavorable, then we need to ask another question. Why did you so fail in achieving your budget? Why did you struggle? Why did you overspend? The answer to that can fall into two categories again. And the first category is the manager might say, It was due to COVID. We had to buy a lot of masks. We had to lose some customers. We had to buy sanitizers, and these were the costs that we never budgeted. We didn't plan for it. We didn't know that there would be COVID, and we had to do all of that. So, which means sometimes it's unfavorable, but the reason or the difference is acceptable because we are saying that is uncontrollable. That is outside the control of the manager. And if that is the case, we can pardon the guy and say, okay, we will revise the budget because the budget is out of your control. So we'll revise the budget. When we revise the budget, what we're trying to do is to make it realistic. Yeah. And once we revise it, we can go back and after some time, collect actual result again and go through the same process to see how the guy is performing. However, if it is not acceptable, which means it is just due to poor performance, yeah, which means it is controllable, but this manager has just refused to perform. In that case, we have to take action. So here, there has to be consequence management because for every action, there must be a reaction. So if you have to be punished, you will be punished. If you have to be trained, you'll be trained. But what is important is just that there has to be an action. We have to take action to make sure that people sit up and do what they have to do. Invariably, what we're trying to do is to improve performance. We want him to improve attitudes, practices, the way people are doing things. Yeah. And once we take those actions, we expect them to do better next time. So we go again and do what? After we've taken those actions and collect actual result again, and we'll follow that steps down. That is just the process of budget control. That is how it is being used to manage people's performance. Yeah, you're always checking to see whether you've done well versus budget or you've not done well. If you have done well, fantastic. If you have not done well, then we'll ask a question whether it's your fault or it's not your fault. That's what we mean by controllable and not controllable. If it is controllable and you did not achieve your budget, then it is your fault. And we'll have to take action. However, if it is due to uncontrollable factors, external factors, then we'll say it's not your fault. So we can adjust your budget next time such that it's within your control and you can deliver. So when budget is used as a control tool, for performance, yeah, you can definitely be rest assured that guys will start getting funny. Yeah, people will start getting desperate because number one, nobody wants to be seen as underperforming. Likewise, most of bonuses that you get at the end of the year in any company, most times is tied to your performance. Nobody wants to lose the bonus because sometimes your bonus can even be more than your salary. Most times it's more. So you want to earn your bonus. And what does that mean? It means that there will be some behavioral issues, and we have to know those behavioral issues. So there will be behavioral issues to budgets. Yeah. And what are we saying? Because we want so much bonus. We want to achieve our targets as the junior managers. What you see is that these junior managers, they want the easiest budget possible. If you think like that, easiest budget to achieve. Something that they can easily achieve, that doesn't require too much stress. That in fact, from January, they want to be 100% sure that come December, this budget will be done and dusted. Like I can operate within this budget no matter what. Yeah. So this is desperation. Yeah. And in trying to achieve this desperation, they will get involved in what you call dysfunctional behavior. Bad behaviors. Because they are desperate. And you can actually guess what are those examples of dysfunctional behaviors that you expect to see for someone that wants to really achieve its budget. So the first thing they would do is budget slacking. Or, like I mentioned it earlier, it's also called padding. Yeah. So slack in the essence that it is weak target. Such a weak, not challenging target. So it's easy to achieve. What are they doing? They are building inefficiency in the budget. Take, for instance, you know that for us to produce 1 unit of our product, we need 5 units of raw materials. Guess what? When these guys are doing the budget and they want to build slack into the budget or they want to pad the budget, what they do is they will budget for 7 items. They know they only need 5. But they know that if they budget exactly 5, and if there is a waste, then they will be in trouble. That means they will need extra quantity, and that means they will overspend their budget. But by the time they budget for 7, worst case scenario, they use 6. And if they use 6, they've used more than they should have used. But guess what? They will look good because they've not even spent as much as they have budgeted. That is slack. Because you have come up with a budget that is not challenging. Yeah. It's very similar to what you called gaming. Gaming is also about having a less ambitious budget. Yeah. You know you can do better, but you're saying, no, I'm not going to shoot myself on the foot. I will not stretch it. Even when you know that you can increase your sales by 10%, you say, no, instead of that, I'll budget 2%. And I'll try and do just 4% this year. So 2%, 4%, that's going to be excellent performance because someone will say you have doubled your target. Then next year again, you do another 5%. You know, last year you should have even done 10%. But what are you doing? You are just doing little by little every year. Something you can do in 1 year, you are trying to push it to every future year just because you don't want something that will stress you. You want something easily achievable. So please take note between the budget slack. I know it can be confusing a bit. Budget slack, gaming, slightly different, but very similar and both dysfunctional. Yeah. The other approach that they can get involved with is what we call short-termism. And what's short-termism? It's just when management are more focused on short-term goals. And what are the short-term goals? They want their bonuses, which means they're only focusing on 1 year, just this year. And a typical example is when people say, okay, no training for staff this year because we want to save training costs. But long run, the company will suffer because what happens is you lose your future relevance for sure. Because if you don't train your staff, how would they know and understand the changes in their industry? So you're probably going to suffer even more than about your existence might be threatened in the future if you don't train people. But in 1 year, you will have saved cost and you say, oh, we've done very well with our cost budget. But they will do it because they want bonus. It can even go as bad that they're getting into fraud. Yeah. This type of fraud is talking about misrepresentation of information to customer. I'm sure a lot of you would have experienced this before. When companies will come and tell you that we are having sales now, and you get to their store, they say they are doing 50% sales. When you look at the price, it's actually ×2 of the price of the other stores. Then they'll now tell you that with 50% sales, you pay half. That half is actually the normal price. So they've actually inflated the price just to play on your psychology to make you think you are getting it at a cheaper price. That is fraud. That's a misrepresentation of information, which is not good for the company because if customers get to know, you are definitely going to lose customers. So, likewise, you can have conflicts across departments because there might be some cost that's a bit controversial. And all departments are trying to reject it because saying, no, this should not come to my department. This is not my budget. This is not my cost. You have to take it. Take, for instance, probably there is a meeting with a disgruntled client and the CEO needs to go and visit the client. The flight cost of the CEO, which department should bear it? Is it the production guys that produce the wrong product, or the logistic guys that ship the wrong product, or the marketing or sales guys that is managing the customers? All of that, they can start fighting as to who should actually absorb that cost into his budget. And that can create conflicts within the organization. Yeah. So, and why are they having that? Because they don't want to lose their bonuses.